All right, so we're picking up in our week 5 notes right where we left off. I know that some of these slides are slightly out of order from how I ended up presenting them in class, and I tried to fix that when I put them back online to match up with what we did in the video. So in the previous lecture, we covered the structure. We heavily covered, we were talking about the root directory and the installation, the differences between having this directory on your computer locally versus remote, which I think is important for you guys to understand, because this skill that I'm teaching you to use XAMPP to run WordPress as a secondary sort of server utility program, it does make it a bit trickier. So when you go to install a WordPress site with a hosting company, it's just going to be that much easier. And then nearing the end of class, we did put in a theme, which had us jump to those slides for Mac users to adjust some things, slides 21 and 22, remember, to make sure that it would work. So the way I have the lecture, or I had set up the lecture, was to do the themes and the plugins in the second part of the lecture, my second video. But because I didn't want people to have to deal with the Mac issues starting off this lecture, we installed the theme at the end of the last class, and then I went and made sure that you followed these instructions. So if you have not done this yet on your Mac, please go and do it. And another note to Mac users, and I'll pull these notes up as well because I have them on my desktop here. The second set of notes from week 4, that was one of our first set of Mac fixes. It was down here, I think it was on slide 16. Okay, so this is all on Fanshawe Online, of course. I'm finding that students with new operating systems on their Macs, I believe it's Yosemite, they're having to put this in every time they restart their machine to start XAMPP. In fact, I'm finding a lot of them are having to put it in every time they disconnect from the internet and make a new connection. Now, I'm sorry about that. As I've explained to you guys, it is a requirement of this program here at Fanshawe for you to have a machine that runs Windows, but I'm not making you do that. And I think once XAMPP is up and running, it actually runs better on a Mac because you don't have to worry about the port issue. But I am finding that a lot of students are having to do this over and over again, and it's one code, guys. It's one simple code. So in week 4, I have this posted in FOL. Log in content. I separated it from the notes and put it in as a separate item. Okay, am I in online right now? So I have this in my regular live sections. I'll be adding this to my online section as soon as class is over, because if you guys are on Macs, I don't want you to have to go digging around for it every time and downloading a whole PowerPoint file. So if you go into week 4, in the lower part of week 4, you'll be able to go in here and just grab that code whenever you need it, okay? And I'm sorry to my PC users that we have this little mini Mac lecture every time we're doing this, but this will stop after the test because a lot of people will transition to a remote host and pay for some hosting and get a WordPress site online. But even if they don't, it's, at that point we will be all through it and everybody will know what's going on. Okay, so those were the few little housekeeping items I had, and we made it up to the point, well, we were down here working on those slides, which come in after we tried to install a plugin down there, but I had you go in ahead of time and put those changes into your Mac so you can install a theme. So we were back here, and we left off, okay? So we're going to keep going from here on slide 11, and what we covered before that mainly had to do with the dashboard, but kind of in the middle here, I did suggest that let's go add a theme now. And for this particular semester, we're going to be using the Luna theme. That may change from term to term. It really doesn't matter. And I'm probably going to change that theme again next week. And this will all be part of the lectures. So yeah, because we ended off here, we were playing around with things in the menu and stuff. One more quick note. PC or Mac, every time you go to start up your WordPress site, you're going to have to make sure XAMPP is running. I stop my XAMPP every time and turn it off, so that it's not running while I don't need it. And then when I go back to my machine and I'm going to load up my localhost WordPress site, I start up XAMPP and it works. So if you go to localhost and nothing comes up, that is because XAMPP hasn't started yet, okay? And that's where those Mac users might have to redo that code from week 4 that I just showed you. So, and this will be about the last of me bringing all this stuff up. I did have a couple slides in the week 5 lecture that talk about this. If you go back near the top where we started last week, I was talking about how you should turn XAMPP on and off, make sure everything's running. So once we get through the first couple weeks, I don't need to be doing that every time. Okay, you guys should be comfortable with that. Okay, so here's where we ended last time, and we did install a theme. It said go back and try and change to another theme. As part of my video lecture and part of our live lecture, we installed a theme so that we could actually see that it works, and so the Mac users could make those changes before we go and try and install a plugin, which we're going to do today. All right, now let's go to our sites. So in any browser, and I'm switching browsers just to show you it doesn't matter that I have localhost open in that other browser. When I go to localhost WordPress here, it works all over the machine. Okay, it's global on my machine. It's not global on the web live because it's locally hosted, but it's global here. So this shows me my site. I do have some minor changes in here that I made in the previous section. So just for review purposes, to undo those changes, because I want to do this with you guys, the same exact thing over again, I'm actually going to go back here to themes. I'm going to activate the one theme that I still left in there from the standard collection of themes that you get when you install WordPress. And with that one activated, I can then go and delete the Luna theme because I've made changes to the CSS, right? I've changed some things around in there, and I'm going to go through a little bit of that with you guys today. But I want you to actually see that happen live. So as a little mini lesson here, we're going to delete a theme. When you only have one theme, you've probably noticed that you don't have the little box here that allows you to search your installed themes. Your only option is to go to add new, and it shows you the theme. So I go here, I'm going to grab the Luna theme, and it's going to be back in my machine, a nice clean brand new version just like that. That's how long it takes, okay? I went to the preview this time, and just to show you that you can also install from the preview. Okay, either or works the same way. Goes back to the dashboard, goes into install, activate. I'm on the Luna theme right where I left off in class last time. And just to remind you guys, I mentioned in class when I was going through that lecture, we had discussed on that earlier slide how you can move around these modules and they can be expanded and collapsed and all that stuff when you're in this general area of the dashboard. You can kind of do the same thing when you're on the pages or the post page, pretty much anywhere in the dashboard. When you see modules, you can move them around and put them where you'd like them to be, conducive to how you want to work on your pages. So down here, when we added those things when we were doing the screen options, I can adjust these by moving them around. If it takes up a lot of space, I can collapse it. And we'd figure that out, and that was pretty basic. What we didn't figure out in the last class was I insisted that I knew you could move these menu items around. I really insisted on it, but I couldn't figure out why. And then as soon as class was over, I knew why. It's because I had downloaded a theme that had a plugin that allowed me to readjust all those menu items. So I put that in at the end of the last lecture, which made total sense. Whenever you can't do anything, find a plugin and it will do it for you. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about in our lecture today is plugins. And I put one in here which I'm also going to uninstall because that doesn't need to be in there. I want to do that. Okay, so this was just a quick review of what's going on in that slide. Themes are always under appearance. You go in new appearance, you can adjust themes from there, you can pick and choose the themes you have. And as I mentioned in the other class, like a lot of WordPress users end up keeping every theme that they ever download. And I don't recommend that because WordPress sites as a database, they do have to operate in a way that is paying attention and loading everything up when you access the database per se. It's never loading everything up. It's really only loading up the stuff you call up in the database. But having that extra stuff in WordPress that you never use, you don't need it, and it can slow down your sites. Having too many plugins can definitely do that. So I recommend when you're in themes, if you're not using the theme, just get rid of it, right? And that also removes this box, which somehow still confuses a lot of WordPress users that have been using it for a while. They go to add a new theme and they always search the installed themes. They're like, hey, what's going on here? And then they quickly realize you got to click add new. So it's the same with plugins. And I think we're pretty comfortable with what a theme is, right? It's a skin. It changes, just like CSS, just like we learned about in the web workshop. CSS changes the appearance, but it doesn't actually change what the raw content is. like the actual text or the typing that you put on there, the typography, it doesn't make any difference. It's just changing the appearance. So we are now on the Luna theme, and we're going to try some stuff out using that theme. So here's a slide describing what I was just talking about. It gives you a better definition of a theme, and this is from WordPress.org. Most of my notes have been directly adapted from there. It's open source. I'm sourcing it in the corner by putting their logo in, but I mean, I'm openly admitting that's where the stuff comes from because it's open source. It really doesn't even matter as long as I don't pretend it's my own. So this is like your mini textbook, right? And it talks about themes. Skinning your site implies that only the design has changed. Okay? A theme is a collection of files working together. These files are called template files. Theme modifies how it's displayed. It might have different image files that it's pulling up into the background. It's got different CSS. As I explained too, and I know I'm repeating myself a bit from our first lecture this week, but this is important stuff. Don't get all into themes to the point where you figure, oh wow, WordPress makes it so easy to just change my layout and change the way my site looks. I'm just going to pick a new theme every week. That's not good for your website. You want consistency. You want your users to become comfortable with the way it looks and feels. And generally, once you find a theme that does work for your content, you do end up customizing it and changing things around and editing the layout and adjusting things. The second you switch to a fresh theme, it will default to a lot of the things that standard themes default to, and it will not look anything like it. So it's not quite as simple as just having everything set up and then just switching themes one day because you want it to look different. It's a little more tricky than that. But essentially, in the earlier phase, when you're planning out a site, it is that simple. If you pick a theme and you try it for about 20 minutes and it's not working out for you, pick another one, okay? It's that easy. And these are pre-designed, ready to go for you. And we also went through all this in the process of installing our first theme, where it was located, how you can do it from WordPress or manually, okay, either or, and how as you're putting these themes together, you know, if you want to start manually actually editing some of the PHP files in there, that's going to be a little trickier. And I've used WordPress for quite a while now without knowing hardly any PHP. I know enough to kind of work my way around a file. But if any of you are interested, and this isn't even in my slide, but I'll just mention it, it's the easiest way to learn PHP is not to go and pay for another course and get online and do that. There's a plethora of offerings on YouTube that are pretty solid. I think if you just go to w3schools.org, which is the site we kept referring to when we were going through the web workshop, and the same place where I adapted the web workshop from, you could learn PHP there. Not I think, you can. They have separate courses on each of the major codes that are used for websites, and PHP is one of them. Okay, but the way WordPress is set up, they tell you going in, you need PHP knowledge. You really don't need that much. If you understand what's happening, you know a bit of CSS, which we're going to talk about today, you're going to be okay. All right, so that's where the themes go. As soon as you remove one, it comes back out of that folder. It's operating all this for you in the background. It's very clean, okay? So changing your theme is very easy. We've already done this. It's just a few clicks away. We even got to start the class today by you guys watching me take the theme out that I'd edited and put a fresh version of it in. So we can do some of those same edits I did in the other section together. The theme directory that WordPress gives to you is not all of the themes that you have available to you to use in WordPress. There are hundreds of thousands of themes out there, and a lot of them are still free, even though they're not in the WordPress directory. There's tons and tons of stuff. So I don't know, hundreds of thousands. There's a lot. I'm sure it's pushing those numbers. And if you don't like what the directory is offering you in the dashboard, just Google WordPress themes and install them through the dashboard, through the upload button. So remember how I talked about that on Wednesday as well? You can go here and upload a theme instead of picking one from the directory. You just have to have the zipped up version that you've downloaded from where you get themes. There's a bunch of places. And we'll talk about that more when I introduce your final project. So it's good to know that your options are almost limitless in terms of what's probably pre-designed and ready to go turnkey for you, including like entire retail stores where you just get them and start plugging in the products. Okay, so we're good now. We're comfortable with this stuff. We've gone over all these things. Let's start looking around here. Let's take a look at this editor. So WordPress has a built-in HTML CSS editor. I would recommend, if you're going to do anything that's somewhat complicated, you get the files onto your computer from your remote host, or if you're using it locally, you can just make copies of them. And you do it, without messing up the CSS that's actually in WordPress. You need to be careful with that. But I'm going to show you first how to do it in WordPress, and then we'll try it, and then we'll discuss kind of the other ways, which we are going to get into after the test. It's still a little bit high level right now for you guys to start. Well, it's not, to use like tag inspectors in the browsers to find out what's going on. So I'll show you that example, but you don't have to do that. I'd like you to at least try and do the CSS change with me. So if I navigate manually, just to give you an idea of where this stuff is, every theme you download is a pre-designed website with its own CSS. So if I go to users XAMPP and I go into WordPress, which is my root directory for the entire database installation, right? htdocs, WordPress. Where do you think I would find the CSS file for the theme that I'm using right now? Yes? Content, okay. Where are the themes? This one's an easy one. Themes, good. Okay, so right now I have the Luna theme activated. So if I go into the Luna theme, the CSS folder itself, and this is the way I find it with most themes, especially free ones, it just contains some scripting files that are sort of running things in CSS. They're setting up different sections of the site that need to clear when certain things are done. The main CSS file will typically be sitting in the main theme folder, not in CSS. And that is the case with this one. And go figure, it's called style, which is really close. What do we call it in the web workshop in steps? Styles? I mean, usually people name these files with pretty obvious names. If they want people to use their theme, why would they give it some weird name to make it harder for you to figure out? Right? So it is there. So when I go into the dashboard in here and I go to editor, the first thing it will always bring up by default is the CSS file that's running most of the CSS on the site. A lot of themes have multiple CSS files, and I'll show you in a second how you can figure out which file it's in. An easy way to do that. But if you just want to change the general way that text looks in your site, right? We have the Luna theme, and I'm going to open up another window here. Hang on. I have just a there. That's way better. Text looks about like this, okay? And what's happening here, oh wow, it actually saved my changes. I'm going to undo this. Give me 1 second. What you guys should, so your site should look like this. I'd made some changes to mine. It should have a post that says hello world. This is set up by default, like most WordPress themes when you get them. They usually automatically show your latest posts as the main page in your site. And we're gonna deal with changing that today as well. What I want to show you is that the main content, the text in the site, will usually function based on the main CSS file. Okay, and if you go back into editor, okay, so appearance editor, it will pull up the main CSS file by default. There's other things you can edit in here, and we're not going to get into PHP and stuff. The actual header of the site is its own PHP file. If you wanted to change the way the header was set up, most header files, you can go in there and see actual measurements, and you can change sizing and stuff if you know your basic way around some code. But we're not going to learn PHP in this course. Most of what you can do with themes is usually done in Customize, like we did in the first lecture. We tried something there. That's still going to be more of a next week thing. But here is a file that you're somewhat familiar with. Now, it's got a whole ton of stuff in the top. And as I explained to you in the web workshop, when you have a CSS file, in that comment section where we were just putting CSS documents so people knew it was a CSS file, you can put all sorts of stuff in there. Okay, it doesn't have to just be an indicator that it's a CSS file. You can have copyright information on who made the theme. You can have links to where you find out more information about the people that made the theme. There's licensing info. There's different notes about the technology used. There's authorship stuff in there. And then there's a table of contents, which is kind of cool. Authorship, is that a word? I just made that up. Sounds like a pretty good word. There's a table of contents there. And the table of contents is not really necessary. I have to look that up. In a CSS file, totally is a word. I should have known that. it's just something that helps you navigate the file a little bit more easily. Okay, so in here it tells you that normalize is the first section. Now normalize usually will just be associated with stuff like your main HTML tag, your body, things like that. If you want to figure out what the typing looks like, it's probably going to be in this section called typography. But you really don't need the table of contents. You can just start scrolling through here. There's not going to be like thousands of tags. Eventually you're going to get to stuff you recognize. And in the typography section here, you can see, hey look, grouping. You guys know about grouping. So we want everything to be this color. Everything. So any button text, any input, any text area, anything in the main body tag of HTML is going to be that color. So you know, unless it's further specified according to what it is, maybe heading or maybe title or something, that if you change that color in this CSS file, you're probably going to be able to change the color of this here. This is a page title or a post title. I doubt that'll change, but let's try changing this. So in the web workshop, when we Googled HTML color codes, we found all sorts of stuff and a variety of color. Like, we're not going to waste a lot of time on this. We'll pick something sort of Halloween sort of themed. If we go to images, I'm just picking the first one that comes up there. That's sort of an autumn type of orange there. That's CC3300. So just pick one, right? Go in there. Don't get rid of the number sign. Don't get rid of the semicolon. You guys know the CSS syntax, right? Here, I'll make it a little bigger for you. Oops. I just switched files by accident. I want styles.css. Let's go back there. Okay, and I can control F. I knew I was on typography. So I can control F and get to the next one. There. So this color here, as I was showing you, oh, why does it do that? I can't zoom in anymore without it jumping into two columns, so we'll stick to this zoom. You don't get rid of the semicolon, you don't get rid of the number sign, you just do the, and I didn't copy and paste that, which I don't think you can do from here anyway. CC3300. CC3300. Now, I go over here, I refresh, nothing's happened. You probably have to save it, right? There's probably a spot where you'd be saving it. So if you go down right below the window where the file is open and click Update, and then you go over here and click Refresh, you can see that any text that was picking up those main typography elements has now changed color for us, okay? That actually looks more like a red once I see it on the white, but whatever, it worked. My point was that it's not that tricky if you get a theme, and generally the theme is okay, but you just want to change a couple little things, to go into the CSS and actually do it. Now, we're in Firefox, which is a good browser for this, and Firebug is actually an even better add-on that you can get that does this in a more comprehensive way. But Chrome and Firefox both do a really good job of this. Pretty much every browser does it. I just think those are the easiest ones to navigate when you're trying to do stuff like this. See how that didn't change color? Check this out. Look up here. I want you guys to pay attention to this, because we're going to spend a lot of time actually trying to make these changes so I can get you to the point where you can do this on your own after the test. You're not going to have to do stuff at this level before the test. But what people using WordPress, you know, in an ongoing way, they're getting into it. They realize, you know what, it doesn't matter if you know code or not. It just takes a long time to find these elements and go around and change them, when the customize section doesn't give us the ability to do that. It doesn't mean you're not going to be able to do that. The pricier themes, you can pretty much change everything WYSIWYG. But let's say I wanted to change this title. Highlight just that text and right click and go to Inspect Element. And most browsers that you'd be in would have that option. With that text highlighted, it's actually telling you over here in the right side underneath the page, it's giving you this the element inspection sort of window here, the inspector. It's telling you it's 6. Well, yeah, I know what color it is, but I want to be able to change it. And if you look up here in the top, it actually tells you the name of the file it's in and what line it's on. And this is where it really comes in handy. I hardly ever make CSS changes in the CSS editor in WordPress. If I know I want to do something and I want to find it quickly, I download the file from my WordPress site using FTP, and then I go into the file with like Notepad++, which gives me line numbers, like Text Wrangler does that for you on your Mac too. It gives you line numbers, and it takes you right to 568. You'll go right to 568, and you'll change that color. Now here's the even cooler thing that not every browser does. I know Firefox and Chrome do. Let's say I wanted to change this just to straight black. Okay, I'll click off it here. You can actually preview this change in the browser before you even do it. So I know black is 000, so now it's changed to black, and you can actually see the change. Now that you could do this with anybody's site. It doesn't mean the site's actually changed. It's just, you know how I talked to you about browsers and how before CSS you were limited to how your site was going to look because it would just load up using the default fonts that the browser had set, the default colors the browser had set, the default margins, the default way that H1 and H3 are going to look. You can still change the way a site looks just piece by piece by using the inspector here. So, and the reason it's a little different than HTML sites, I mean, you have this one CSS file. In general, it's usually not that overwhelming. There tends to be more CSS in these WordPress sites, and the files are pretty big. So you want to be able to quickly find things. Instead of just guessing, which I just showed you how to do here, we weren't really guessing. We could tell that that was going to be part of the body of the post, so when we changed the color, it did work. But that title didn't change. So this tells us it's on line 568 of the CSS file. However, we don't see that inside of the actual CSS editor in the dashboard. And this is why they say you need a little bit of skill when it comes to some basic code. So if I go in here and I pull up, remember I showed you where the style file was? I go to Notepad++, they give me line numbers. There's a program called Brackets that's even better. Brackets allows you to search entire folders for one piece of text. So if you can't figure out which file it's in, you can just look for it if you can find it in the tag inspector and find its name. So it says 568. So I'm going to keep scrolling down until I get into the fives. 568. Okay, so I'm on line 568, and there is a tag for A, which is hyperlink. Okay, that's the HTML code for link. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so this is in link. Cool. And I can just change the way links look in the site by changing this color. So if I change it in here to, let's do a color that's obvious that we're going to see. Let's make it green. 009900. So let's change it in here. Sorry. Shopping for wetsuits, apparently. I forgot. I even pulled that up. And then let's save the file. So this is manually. Now, if it was remote, we would then have to upload this file back up to our remote host, which takes like no time. It's a very small file. It's not remote, it's saved locally, so these changes should be live immediately. And if we go back here and refresh, you could see, there we go. So anything that's a hyperlink is now green. Now the reason those are actually links is because when you have your front page set up as the latest posts, the title of the post will always take you to the whole post. This is just showing you a shorter version of it. There should be a widget that will take you to the category that post is in, which is uncategorized at this time. And these are all things we're going to get to later. I'm just showing you, just because you only learned what you learned in the web workshop does not mean you can't very easily go and change some of this stuff. Okay, do you guys have any questions? Are you somewhat comfortable with what I just showed you? You might have to make a small CSS change on the test, but it won't be big. And you won't have to use the property inspector like I did there. Okay. So that gave you kind of a crash course on the CSS editor. You also have HTML editing capabilities built into the creation of pages or posts whenever you go to make them. Okay, now you can use a program like Dreamweaver to do this. And I think there's a couple other free ones out there that are WYSIWYG HTML editors, but for the most part, Dreamweaver's the main one. And that's actually the program I used to use in this course as the main teaching tool. But it is not free. And it's really designed mainly for HTML sites. I mean, you can build an entire database with it in PHP files like in a WordPress site, but why would you do that when WordPress is already set up for you? So what I recommend is, instead of getting a program like Dreamweaver, I recommend getting a program like Brackets that's kind of like Dreamweaver. You can search entire folders for stuff, for text within files, but Brackets is free and it just doesn't provide WYSIWYG view, okay? But it does have the same kind of search functionality that Dreamweaver has. All right, so automatically when you go in there, into the editor, the first file that'll open up would be the CSS file, and you can edit any other HTML, PHP, or CSS files in there if you pull them up. I think it's cool to have that for quick changes, but I think if you're going to do a lot more stuff to your site than just changing a couple colors here and there, you're better off to get the file, get it, out of the site, change it around, and then upload the new version of it. So in the process of doing this, WordPress has these built-in editors. They're called theme editors and plugin editors. So you can edit all the files. There's the theme editor menu, appearance editor menu to view files. So all the files associated with a theme or a plugin should be coming up when you go into that editor to look for what you want to edit. So the main thing, like I keep saying, will be the CSS file. But as you can see, there's different themes and templates in here. Look, you can choose the themes that are available. And when there's plugins in there, well, the plugin editor, we'll put a plugin there and we'll see where that pops up, okay? So first time theme, this theme is recommended these plugins. We'll get to that in a second. But you can pick what you're editing and it will pull up the files that are editable in the editor when you choose from the select area. Okay, so we're going to come back and see if plugins populate in there after we put them in. The one thing that I think it's this slide that recommends it. View these files. Be aware, this is really important right here, okay? If you make a bunch of changes that you really like to a theme, and they're not just like formatting changes, they might be something bigger than that, you might not want to update the theme, okay? Themes are constantly being updated, and I've updated a theme before that I made a bunch of changes to, and I lost all my changes. I changed like the sizing of some of the divs and done a bunch of stuff like that. So I'm not saying never update your theme, but if you've made substantial changes, you might want to check out what's been upgraded in the theme before you actually install the updates. Another thing that's important to do is to save an original version of what you're about to change. So if you're going to make a pile of changes to the CSS file, for example, and you can do this remotely in your root directory like with GoDaddy too. You would go in to the main root directory, and you can see I did this already this morning. And so I'm in XAMPP htdocs. So technically once I get into here, I'm in like my HTML folder in like a remote host where I have a bunch of different websites. One of my websites that I see here is WordPress. So if I go into WordPress and I know I'm going to make my CSS different and I don't want to lose the original version in case I screw something up really badly and I need to get back to it, make a folder in here called backups, and it can just be an empty folder. And if you go into that theme folder and go and grab the style sheet and copy it and then put it in here and call it Luna-style, so you know which one it's for, you'll always have that. That won't affect anything in your site. I know it's part of your root directory, but you can make folders in your root directory folder that don't have functionality in terms of the site. Nothing is linked to that because you haven't gone into your code and linked anything up to backups /style.css or lunastyle.css, so it's not going to affect anything. You need to pay attention to these little things, because if you get in the habit of backing things up, your life is just going to be a whole lot easier. So when you're using WordPress with a legitimate hosting company and you're not just doing it locally on your machine like we're doing, the best thing to do is just to every now and then or frequently download the entire directory from your remote host and have a backup version of it on your computer. And I would do it right at the beginning too, so you always have the original version and how it was. But I mean, generally speaking, themes, when you update themes, they don't change that much stuff. I have updated a lot of other themes where it didn't change things on me, but I would still have a backup just to be safe. Okay. Good. So that gives you kind of an idea of the stuff you can do within the dashboard and outside of it. These are the general codes or types of files that will come up in the editor. So if there's any files associated with the theme or plugin that can be edited with these code extensions, they'll pop up. HT access is actually one we're not really going to mess around with, but that has to do with the way your site, it has like the 401 redirect in there. So if you type in a bad address, but somebody got the domain right, instead of going to like a screen cannot display thing, it will actually show you like a redirect screen, which is much more better. It's much more friendly for optimization purposes. You never want people going to any address on your site, even if it's a bad one, and not seeing something that has to do with your site. So stuff like that's in the HT access file. Your main, they call it a canonical. It's whether or not your site loads up with the www in front of it or just without it. When you set up WordPress with a remote host, it will ask you how you want these things set, and that'd be it. You don't really need to get in there too much. There are some plugins and some tools that are used for optimization and analytics purposes, but if they give you code that needs to go into that file, they'll tell you exactly what to do with it, right? For the most part, we don't mess around with that. But the rest of these, you might end up stumbling into one of them once at one point, and they can all be edited in the editor, and they can also be edited manually on your own computer. So things to know, it talks about the changes again. Changes are instant. Changes happen online. It's not like with pages and posts where you can actually draft them and set like privacy levels and stuff. So you need to be careful with what you do, because if your site is pretty popular and you get a lot of traffic and you change something that screws it all up, you got to watch out for that stuff. So, and it talks about having a backup again, and it talks about the built-in editor. Very basic, just allowing you quick edits. But line numbers and stuff like that, you might want to get another program to do that. So I've already kind of covered that. Okay, plugins. Now, this is something very, very different. So we've spent a lot of time on themes. We know what themes are. I know you guys aren't going to do much yet, but just bear with me because you need to understand this stuff first. A plugin could do a variety of things. They also have things in WordPress sites called widgets, and widgets are really meant to define these objects or these links or little things that go into the sidebar or into your widget area in a WordPress site that offer your users different options for what they want to do in terms of navigating your site. And in the widget area, you can actually have plugins that you've downloaded that would be providing information to the users, like a weather widget, like a tip calculator for a restaurant page, like some kind of cool mapping tool, and we'll do one of those today. Like this. So widgets and plugins with WordPress, the terms kind of get confusing because there's the widget area in a WordPress site, which I'll show you quickly here. So if you go into Appearance, there should usually be a section for widgets unless your theme is totally changed around the way it works. And our site currently is only loading up the blog roll page, so you don't see the widget area yet. You could get there if you just went to the page that they have set up. But you can have a bunch of stuff that you put in the sidebar. You can have widgets on the default home page. You can have a social area. So there's social widgets. There's a special social area set up for this one. If you click on it, you can see drag the MT social icon widgets here. So I've never used this theme. I don't know what I'm doing, but just based on the instructions that I was following, if you just sit back for a moment and relax and read what it's telling you to do, it should make sense, even if you've never used WordPress. Okay, so these are widgets within the site, like these little objects that go around the main content area, okay? And then when you're looking at plugins, a lot of these plugins are referred to as widgets because they perform functionality that would typically be stuck in the widget area. Like there's about 100 different plugins probably that provide a way for you to put your social icons into a WordPress site, right? So those would also be considered widgets. Now then, there's other plugins that do all sorts of stuff in the background that people would never see. And those aren't really widgets. Those are just operational plugins, right? They do things for you and perform actions, and they like the optimization plugins that we use in this class that we'll get to right after the test. Or right before, actually, we'll get into some of those. They set up all these different sections of your site that enable you to optimize your content without having to go in and code it. So plugins do all sorts of stuff that help you to avoid ever having to code anything. And it's very cool that they do that. Okay, so searching for plugins, installing, activating, we're going to do that right now. Okay, so plugin might change the WordPress toolbar area, that whole menu along the side that I told you could move around and change. That comes from a plugin. The ability to move around the items in the WordPress menu that I was complaining about in the last lecture that I couldn't do, like reordering these, that can be done via a plugin. No one that goes to your website would ever know you're using that plugin. Then there are map plugins that you specifically use to provide more functionality for your users, and they give you codes you can paste right into pages. Okay, so whatever you want to do with a WordPress site, if you don't think you can do it, go to plugins and search for it. Okay, so for our first example, I'm going to actually search for a map plugin. Now right now I have no plugins installed. I got rid of the plugins that came with the site. I believe they were, here, I'll put them back in there for you. They were Akismet. Okay, this is a security plugin. And this other really kind of hokey one that is coming with like most WordPress themes now. A lot of themes will just come with a few plugins. A lot of themes that you download come with plugins that they need to function properly. Okay, this particular theme that we downloaded just came with 2 plugins, neither of which did you need, but they're just in there to kind of get you started with plugins. Okay, so I'm going to activate that one. I'm not going to activate the other one. Hang on, I'm going to deactivate that. I'll show you something really quick. So both these plugins came with your theme. You guys should all have the same ones if you got Luna, and they're both deactivated. This first one is a security plugin. It's actually not free, so it's always in there. I think you might be able to use it as a trial. Like there's a plan, you got to get a key. You should get some kind of security plugin. There are a variety of free ones that we cover in a later lecture that work pretty well. Why would you need a security plugin for a WordPress website? Most WordPress websites are what kind of sites? Most of them, a lot of them, still are blog driven, right? Why do you need a security plugin for a blog? Yes? Spam, right. If any of you have ever blogged before, you know what I'm talking about. You'll be writing about, the most amazing sunset you just saw in Grand Bend, and some robot comes in and plugs like some stupid product from the middle of nowhere that has nothing to do with sunsets or your blog post. It's annoying, and you want to try and avoid this type of behavior, and it can get pretty bad in blogs where things starting to repost and there's all kinds of stuff going on. So security plugins help to mitigate this kind of stuff. It's good to have them. Any plugins you're not using, though, I always say if you know you're not going to use it, you're never going to use it, get rid of it. It just takes up space. Okay? So before I hit delete these files, you're going to see it's the same setup as themes, but there's a folder for plugins. I have Akismet there now. If I click yes, delete these files, and then I go back to that folder, it's gone. So just like with themes, WordPress will sort out all this stuff in the background for you and keep your files clean. This is what we're really bad at, right? Since we started using smartphones, like we just leave crap on our computers everywhere. We never folder it, we never organize it. My desktop, each lecture I come in, looks worse and worse. That's what happens in a semester. And then I get everything in folders and it looks good for a few days and then it gets bad again. WordPress just deals with that for us. It's awesome. So I'm not going to use Hello Dolly either. This is pretty cool. It's like a plugin that allows you to like put quotes from, I think it's Louis Armstrong. Yeah, Louis Armstrong. But I will use this as a quick example. Like it's not activated right now. Now plugins are all different, and this is what's annoying about it. You kind of have to get past like the basic rule of plugins is that they're not going to all work the same. Okay, some are going to have their own menu that pops up in the WordPress menu bar, okay, along here with all these items. Some are going to be stuck somewhere else, and you're going to have to find it, right? And if you go into view details, usually it'll give you some information about it. So after I activate this, I didn't see anything change, okay? If I go into appearance, installed plugins, okay, contact form 7 came with it, so that's already set up. No, it's asking you to install. It's recommending that. I was going to say that wasn't in our plugin list. How about tools? No, I don't see it in there. Settings? No. Okay, so maybe comments? No. No. Okay, so maybe if I don't see it anywhere, it might be one of those plugins that as I'm creating a new page or post, okay, so I'm going to go to pages and go to add new. You guys do this with me. Everybody do this with me. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're doing Hello Dolly or not. Just go and add a new page, and we're going to do some different plugins that we'll see change the way we can do stuff there. I'm going to go to add new, and I'm going to make sure I'm on visual, and I still don't see anything. If I go here, wow, I'm completely lost. I don't know where the heck Hello Dolly goes. This is like the worst example ever, because usually you're able to find it somewhere. And if you can't, then go back to plugins and go and view the details. And I was really hoping I didn't have to do that, but I have never used this plugin. This is just a plugin. It symbolizes, it's not just a plugin. Okay, great. All right. WordPress plugin page, plugin homepage. So this is a WordPress plugin. Upper right of your admin screen on every page. I know. I just don't. I already looked there and I just didn't see it. Am I like totally blind? Like, this is, come on. Where? Okay, so I am totally blind because there it is right there. Okay? So that was a tough one. That was, okay. Well, hello, Dolly. So I think this is basically, this isn't part of something you add into a page. It's just something to make your WordPress experience a little more fun. I always delete it. I've never actually bothered to install it. And that was a great example because there's one where I had no idea what was going on. But had I just paid more attention and just read the freaking description, but I did, and I kept looking up there, and I kept looking here, right? And I just didn't see this. Find her an empty glass, fellas. Empty lap glass. Find her an empty lap, fellas. Huh. Nice. And every time you switch, you know what? That's actually kind of cute. I'm actually going to leave that in there. Whatever. So let's go and look for another plugin. Go here and go add new. We're going to use this map one that I found this morning that I thought was kind of cool. So if you just type in the word map, you will literally get thousands of returns. Most of them would be associated with Google Maps. And one of the things I was teaching my guys this morning is it's like Amazon reviews, right? Don't buy the thing on Amazon that has one good review and nobody else has reviewed it and it like hasn't really sold much at all. Okay, it's the same thing goes for plugins. Don't buy the thing, or don't go and download the plugin that has hardly any reviews and nobody's used it, because there's probably a reason for that. And what's cool about the plugin area is it shows you how recently it was updated as well. So I always look for stuff that's been updated fairly recently, at least within the last month, and it has a lot of good reviews. 22 good reviews is not that good for 30,000 installs. Pushing 500 there is pretty good. So any of these would probably be acceptable. I actually ended up getting this one, which turned out to be kind of neat. So I'll show you guys how this works. So I see this plugin. Okay, I click on the thing. It tells me a bunch about it. I'm like, yeah, this sounds pretty sweet. I'm gonna go install this. Hit install. Okay, all this stuff happens, and this is where, and I should have mentioned this with the theme thing as well, where if you didn't do those Mac fixes to allow permissions into all those folders that are associated with your root directory, this wouldn't work, just like it didn't work when you tried to install the theme on your Mac. Okay, and you'd have to go back to the beginning of these same notes from week 5, and it's actually slides we're going to run into sooner or later here because we're just installing it now. The slides are here, 2021, 22. They all have to do with the Mac issues people run into. But we're not going to have that problem. That's why I did it ahead of time. So I'm going to get it. I'm going to activate it. Now watch what happens with this one. This is what I'm talking about, how every plugin does something a little bit different. Did I not click on that? Activate. Okay, there it goes. This just appeared in the menu. So this has its own menu, okay? That's set up so you can go in there and do stuff, all right? So if I go into the map markers menu and I decide I want to add a new marker, now before this morning, I'd never used this plugin, and literally it probably won't take me any less time now to do what I want to do, because that's how user-friendly most of these are. So I'm kind of concerned, and I was this morning when I downloaded this, well, maybe it doesn't actually, maybe you need a map plugin as well, and this is just to add the markers. But that's not how it works. You go in there, and it will give you a map, and you literally, it's just like Google Maps. It's very intuitive. So I don't know where the heck I am here, so I'm just going to zoom out. And it looks like I'm, am I in Russia? No, not Russia, but where is that? Hungary? I don't know. Weird. But I'm going to zoom out and kind of scroll over to my part of the globe. I can actually just type in where I want to go to, which is even easier, but it probably wouldn't take that long to get in on the map. Nope, that's the St. Lawrence Seaway. Hang on. Lake Huron is more like what I wanted. Okay, so there's Kettle Point, where a bunch of my buddies are kiteboarding right now because it's windy. I can see the trees. I hate this classroom with all these windows. So if I go into Grand Bend, and you know what? I actually want to promote this. I've been going up to Bayfield a lot when it's side shore, or when it's straight on shore in Grand Bend, because when I get up to Bayfield, it's actually side shore. And I'm going to go right where I pump up my kite. And I'm going to have this set up as part of my kiteboarding blog that features these new kiteboarding spots, okay? I don't know how to use this plugin. I'm just going to take a guess that I just click on the beach, and hey, what do you know? It worked. That's what these things are about, right? They're user-friendly awesomeness. It's just great. So now I've got this map icon assigned. Had I just typed in Bayfield, so up here, where is it? Enter a location right here. Here, get out of here. You can enter a location and it'll bring you there. So I'm going to call this Bayfield Pier Beach. And then I'm going to say great for west winds with a tiny bit of north. And you'll know because it's straight on shore in Grand Bend. I'd explain that in the post. I'm just naming the object now. And 640 to 480, you can change the size here too. This is a really simple, and you know, it's not a shock that it's like this because I picked one with really good reviews, right? So I'm thinking more like 400 by like 275. It doesn't have to be that big. It just has to give people the general area, right? And then I'll zoom out a little bit more just so they can see where they are in Bayfield. And then I'll hit publish. Okay, now this goes nowhere. And that's how a lot of these plugins work. You can have plugins for photo scrollers, for sliders across the top of your page. You can have all sorts of stuff that plugins will provide to you. But until you take the code then and put it into where you want it to go, it's not going to actually do anything. So from here, you can see I have this code, and I can just copy that and go. We're going to actually make our own post now. We're going to make a post. I can copy that and go into a post and set up an actual post instead of hello world, which is the default post that pretty much every single WordPress theme comes with. But I'm not going to copy the code from here. I'm going to show you something even cooler about this plugin because every plugin's different. I went into post this morning, after I'd copied the code, and I was going to, you can make a new one or you can just edit the one that's in here. I don't care what you do. I'm not grading you guys on this. We're just practicing stuff. So I'm just going to edit the post that's there, the hello world post, and I'm going to change it to Bayfield Pier. So each of these posts will have a name. And even though I'm not getting into categories yet, let's pretend I actually am doing a kiteboarding location site where I'm trying to help people with spots in the Great Lakes. Okay, I'm going to go here and categorize this as Lake Huron. Okay. And then I'm going to uncheck uncategorize. You don't want to leave stuff uncategorized. Posts should be categorized. It's just another place for you to build up keywords and descriptions and stuff like that. And we will get way more in depth into that stuff. So Lake Huron, check this out. I go here when I am riding my whatever gear. Okay, I'm just switching from Ocean Rodeo back to Nash. I don't know if you guys kite, but I don't know why I ever left Nash. Maybe because it's expensive, but I got another pro deal with them. So, and then on and on and on and on and on, right? Because you want to write some quality content. You're not just going to make a couple sentences. You're going to write an actual article post, because that's the point here. Everything I'm showing you, once you get your head around it, holy cow, you can set up a WordPress site and get it all ready to go and looking good in like an hour. But it'll be weeks before you actually have enough content in that site that I would consider, you know, in a state where you could launch the thing and actually get some good traffic. It's all about the content. So underneath here, I want to put this map, and I actually have a button from that plugin that comes up in my post and pages, like editing screen, to add the map. I don't even have to go in there and get it. Okay, which a lot of plugins, that's the way it works. You got to go get the code and then bring it in there. This one's got a button, which I think the newer plugins are more like this. I thought that was pretty user-friendly. So I click Add Map, and I click on it, and it should be, and then you click Insert Map, and it should be in there. Okay, there it is. So I don't see it. Okay, and if I go to text, which is the HTML editing side of my pages and posts, it still looks exactly the same. But if I update it and then view it, okay, so I want to view this post right here, view post. It'll show it to me in the browser. It's got this cool little map that shows you where I pump up my kite. Okay, and there's, you can get directions to there, export, open as a standalone. Okay, so this is pretty cool. You can do MapQuest, Google Maps. Wow, this is an awesome plugin. Okay, so, and I just found it this morning. I just picked it because it had a lot of downloads and reviews. So that's what I'm talking about with the widget functionality. This would be a widget-esque type of plugin. It's a weather widget. It's a mapping tool. It's a tip calculator. It's a currency calculator thing. It's a currency exchange thing. All these neat little BS things that you can throw into a website. If it directly ties in with your content, you'd be surprised. People come back to actually use those little things. But you still need to have that high quality content again and again. But it'd be cool to set up a site like this, and anytime you have a location, you give people a map directly to it. You don't have to give them directions and stuff. You just say, here. You could still give them directions if there's something tricky going on there. But that was a plugin where things came up in the main menu. Now there's another plugin. I think I actually recommend this one in my notes. Yeah, this is a cool plugin because it gives you a lot of the basic HTML sort of tools that you might want to add into a page, like tables and stuff like that. You can pull up your headings more easily. And it's a very handy plugin. So I'm going to show you what happens when I grab this one, and it's different. So plugins, okay, add new, search tiny MCE but no spaces, and it should be the first one that comes up. You guys should install this with me. Install. It's got 150 reviews. It's got millions of downloads. Activate plugin. Now watch what happens when I activate plugin. Like the Hello Dolly one. Nothing changed, okay? I don't see anything. Now, I know this plugin, and I have read about this plugin. I think it's very useful. So I know if I want to change like plugin settings and stuff like that, if I go under settings, there's actually a menu for it in settings where you can change the settings for Tiny MCE Advanced, and where you can enable or disable the editor and pull in different buttons. So these are all these basic HTML things that if you went to, remember how I showed you the CSS editor, and that'll be the code editor in the editor section? When you're on pages and posts, you can actually do code editing as well. So let's go to the sample page. It looks just like the post. Posts and pages look the same. And when you go to text, you can start adding in, for example, up at the top here, if I wanted to add heading 1, okay, I could go hit enter, go H1, okay, example page, woohoo, close H1. And if I go back now to visual, that will be in there. What the tiny MCE advanced plugin does is enables you to be that much lazier and not have to type even simple codes like that. Because as soon as I'm in visual, you can see I have this, here look, edit, where's headings? Insert, there's a whole menu for headings. There's a whole menu, there, heading, formats, headings. And you can just pick it here. You highlight the text and just do it. It's under format headings. You can make a table here without having to code it. And tables, I mean, people don't use these anymore to make sites, but we used it in the web workshop. Tables are still the quickest and easiest way to fix a location for something in white space on a page. So if you want, well, there's other ways too, but I still think tables are nice and handy for that. So you have a whole table menu. You have these other extra tools where you can do a source code, and you don't see it in text because text is the HTML editing side of this, the non-WYSIWYG side, where you wouldn't use the MCE advanced tools because those are enabling you not to have to be in text, right? But when you go back to visual, that menu should be there if you've activated that plugin. And it will be there in posts too. It's not just pages. Posts and pages look very similar when you're setting them up. The difference is when you set up a post, by default, it automatically goes into your blog roll, into your collection of blog posts, and it's indexed and archived, and it's part of the article, the collection of articles on your website. You don't even have to do anything to make that happen. It just happens, okay? And when you're doing a post, you have the option to categorize it and also add tags, which we'll get to a bit later. Okay, those are right down here. If you go to pages and you go to make a new page, a page is like a static HTML page in your site. So when I go to add new, I don't have the categories and tags. I have this other thing, page attributes, parent. So by default, every page can become part of your main menu. You can also make a post part of your main menu too, just by copying the URL from where the post is and then making a custom link in your menu. Menus and building the menu and doing all that stuff. We're going to get into all that in our next class. But the main 3 places you're going to go if you're running a WordPress site and you're adding things and taking it are going to be posts, pages, and at the beginning, appearance menus to set up what you have going on here. Because what I'm going to leave you with, there's something happening here. I want you guys to make a page. Go in and add a new page and call it home. This is going to be your home page. Home. And you can go, this will be my home page. And just publish it. And here's where, remember how I said a lot of people when they're putting a site up remotely with a host, they screw up and they're constantly editing and updating pages, but they're making it public and then people are seeing them construct their sites. This is not what you want to do. If you're going to do it, you make one page that says you're working on your site, and everything you're working on that's in progress, you make it private, okay? You set it so that it's a draft that nobody can see. And you don't publish immediately. We're actually just going to publish this because what do we care? We're doing this locally with XAMPP, right? Nobody can see it except us. And then we're going to go view page, okay? Now this is what I want to be my home page, and here it is. This will be my home page, and you can see now you actually see the sidebar. These are all those little basic widgets I was talking about that WordPress has. Why, when I go here, does it not load that up? Because almost every WordPress theme by default will load up your blog roll. It'll load up your latest posts. And you see, well, that doesn't even show me the whole post. That's because if I had more posts, they'd all be here. If you want to go to the post, you got to click View More. Okay, so this is a setting that's very important to understand and know where it is. If you go into the dashboard, one of the first things I do, because most of the sites I make are not blogs, so the blog roll will not be my main page. I go to Settings, and I go to Discussion, which is to relate to how your site is being used. Is it being used as a blog site where people will chit-chat back and forth about what you're writing? Or is it being used as just a standard website? Sorry, reading, not discussion. Discussion is for comments. Reading, because are people coming there and they're going and reading your articles? Or are they just coming to see information about your business, and maybe the blog can be built in as a link elsewhere, right? So instead of having your latest posts be your blog, your home page, your main page that loads up, you go here and you choose the page you want. And I'm going to choose home. And when you go down and save those changes and then go to your site, that's the page now. Okay, so now obviously this site needs a whole lot of stuff. We haven't really done much to it. And when I go start getting into menus, I might change the theme because I don't really like the way this menu is set up. I'd rather see a more customary menu for a standard site that's then optimized. Not optimized. My brain is going left and right today. That's then responsive to different size monitors. So it might collapse like that if you're on a smartphone, but not automatically. And there's still that one plugin I want to show you last. So click on the details to review the information. Once you've installed it, go look around and try and figure out what's going on with it. Check the menus, go back and read the information if you can't find it. Plugins are awesome. There's a plugin for everything, okay? Now, if you're on a Mac, the issues you would have run into, which should have already been fixed yesterday with the themes, are all detailed here on slides 20 through 22. And then you can also look through the plugins at wordpress.org at their plugins page. You don't have to use the plugin directory. You can also download cool plugins that actually aren't in the WordPress directory yet. Most of those are in there, unlike themes, but you can still do that. Moving on here, so as you can see, we have two different avenues we can take here. You can write either posts or pages. Pages are going to be more static, okay, about, contact, stuff like that. This is describing what you'd use it for. If you're not blogging, maybe posts will be news items. This just in, the latest news, check out this new product of the week. You can use the blog function for a lot of different stuff. In general, pages are very similar to posts. They both have the same elements, titles, content. I showed you that when you go to make them, the screen in the dashboard to make the two is almost the same when you're doing a page or a post. But there are distinctions that make them different, right? So pages are content that is going to sit around on your site for a while. It's a little less time dependent, okay? You can have pages get organized into subpages. That will be stuff that's likely going to permanently be on your site. So are the posts, but the blog in general is always changing. Okay, the thing I love about WordPress is you don't have to screw around getting drop-down menus to work like we used to in HTML sites, and you try and use Dreamweaver to do it for you or get a better HTML5 version. It's automatic in WordPress, the way the menus work, okay? Excuse me. Certain themes have, sorry guys, certain themes have multiple page templates they come with that you can use. So, well, I want to do just a full width page and talk about things like this, and I want to do a page that has the sidebar on it. These are usually not free themes, but it's all set up through the PHP. Pages have a more complex array of readily available display adjustments, where a blog post, it's kind of going to look the same within a theme as the other blog posts, where pages you can change them around a bit. So I like how they say this. In essence, pages are for non-blog content, okay? So without having to have a screen just on blog posts, you can kind of tell that that's the stuff where you're updating people, right? That way you don't have a static HTML site where without a blog you have to come up with reasons to change it all the time. You got to have some page in your site that's changing. You ought to be altering content, okay? So we just did this, all right? We went through the process of making a new page. I showed you how you can make it private or public, and we made a new page. And I also showed you how you can go into your settings and make that page the main page that comes up when your site loads, which will probably be the way we start the next lecture, just to review, okay? So, and we went through these little things. I'm just gonna, at the end here, make sure you understand where all these are. So the title area, that's going to be the same with pages and posts. But as we're making a new page, the page title that we learned about in HTML is going right here, okay? The content of the page goes in here, and we can do that in WYSIWYG or in raw text, either or. All right, the published draft private privileges, they're right over here. They're usually the thing right on the top. We talked about that. As you learned in the first lecture, if you want the page attributes to be above that, you can move these and drag them around in your dashboard. Okay, I'd rather have that on top. And then the screen options, which we've talked about as well, right? And I have the slug and the discussion already up because it's a page. I don't want comments allowed, so I want to make sure I have that unchecked. Okay, so you're going to get comfortable with this pretty quickly, and you're going to see like, wow, I can make a website up in like a matter of minutes. Yes, just not full of quality content. Okay, so I said add content to your page from a lorem ipsum text filler. We're not going to do this, but I'm going to show you why this is useful, and then publish the page and save it. So if we did want to add more text, basically because we want to see what it's going to look like with a bunch of text, if you search lorem ipsum generator or lorem ipsum tool or something, okay, there's usually a few different options. So here's a bunch of text, right? So you can grab this and put it into a page so you can see what the page will look like with a bunch of text. So lorem ipsum, you guys know what that is? This won't be on the test. Yeah, it's like gibberish crap that that printing guys use, like publishing, desktop publishing. Guys like that use it to see what things are going to look like before they actually have the content. So you can lay things out and get a good idea of like the visual without having to type out all the content. You will not, when you turn in your final project, give me pages full of lorem ipsum and say, look at this awesome site I made. I just didn't have time for the content. Cool, I could have done that last night. Like, it's the content that takes more time, okay? And we will start getting into that more next week. So that's kind of a neat little trick that you can use to, so I could take that and just dump it in here, right? Copy, dump it in, and then I'd have a feel for a page that'll have a little more content in it. View page. Okay. So you can see maybe the text is a little too big. Maybe it's a bit too far apart. Maybe I could adjust the kerning or the line height. And you can do that in the CSS. You can do all this stuff. So that took a little longer than I wanted it to. I'm just trying to get you guys comfortable in the dashboard. Starting next week in week 6, we will actually start building things together. One of the first things we're going to do after we go back and review some of the settings is get into the menu. You can see here, as I'm making pages, they're automatically being added. And most themes will come that way, where they'll just add your pages for you. But as soon as you go into menus, I'm going to show you how easily you can just control this yourself and add and take away and put whatever you want in the menu, which is going to be important when you're putting your site together. Any questions? Because that would be the end of the week 5 notes. Okay, you guys are feeling all right about all this stuff? Okay, that's it for today. If you're still having technical issues, you will have time now to come up and ask me for help with that. Otherwise, you're free to go. Have a good holiday weekend.